Welcome back to another episode of Reach the Unreachable, a GFI podcast. I'm your host, Sherry, and I'm here today to talk about the end of the year beyond reflection. Now, it's always good to reflect on history. Some people say you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. I like to reflect on the past and revisit fun memories, especially when I no longer have an opportunity to create more memories due to loss. I lost my son many years ago, so we sometimes watch home videos that help me relive the past. It's been nearly 20 years since we lost him, but it still hurts sometimes. Watching fun videos is a good way to take the pain away. I always thank God for the time He allowed us to spend with my son. It was truly a blessing for us all. It's also good to reflect on past mistakes to help us avoid repeating them. Without it, we run the risk of repeating the same things over and over again, looking for a different outcome. In case you do not know the term for that, let me help you out. It is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We often repeat a mistake at least once because we weren't paying attention the first time. However, if the same thing happens a third time, one might call that a habit. The Bible tells us to examine ourselves daily. My pastor reminds us to examine our day each night to help with the self-examination process. So I suggest that you do the same thing because it is good to evaluate your day on a daily basis. And that brings me to the reason for today's topic, where I go beyond reflection at the end of the year. Since reflection is suggested on a daily basis, it loses its luster by the end of the year. So we want to go beyond reflection and look at where are we now. Before the new year starts, it's good to know where you are. That way you can know, or at least plan for, what you need to do to move forward in the new year. I'm not talking about where you are in a physical sense. Although if you have plans to move to a new location, it is definitely good to know where you are located. Aside from that, you should know where you are in multiple areas of your life, including, but not limited to, your relationships, your finances, your career or employment, your education, your physical health, your mental health, and most importantly, your spiritual health. Now, before I get to the most important part, which is your spiritual health, I want to review the other ones that I mentioned. Now, before entering the new year, you need to know where you are in your relationships. If you're married, talk to your spouse about where you are and have an honest conversation about it. My hope is that you're both on the same page, and if you have some differences that need to be resolved, you can put together a good plan to resolve it in the coming year. Before you can make a plan, you need to know where you are. Perhaps you have a more fluid relationship, meaning you have a love interest, but you're not married yet. It is good to know where you both are so you can know where you're heading. My hope is that your love interest is of the opposite sex, because otherwise you have a major problem with where you are as it relates to your spiritual health. Remember, that's the most important part. And don't forget, that's the most important part. That's the most important area of your life, your spiritual health. Let's continue talking about relationships. Now, whether it's friends or family, you need to know where you are in your relationship. In some cases, a relationship can be toxic for one or both people involved. When that happens, it's okay, and sometimes it may even be necessary to separate from the other person. This can be a painful process, but it will prove to be very beneficial in the long term. Start by honestly evaluating the relationship, and if there are any red flags or glaring signs that the relationship is toxic, remove yourself as immediately as possible. Your life may depend on it. I had a situation where I was dealing with domestic violence, and I had to remove myself from that relationship. It's just something you have to do sometimes. And I ended up being a single mom of 4 children, but God was with me every step of the way and helped me get through it all. And my life was better once I removed myself from that toxic relationship. So I encourage you, if you're in a toxic relationship, it is not worth staying. Don't say you're staying for the kids, because it is not worth staying. And you're doing more damage to those kids staying in that relationship than you would be if you took yourself and your children out of that relationship. So something to think about for real. Another area that requires you to know where you are is with your finances. Depending on your goals in life, this is likely an area that needs to be evaluated on a regular basis, at least monthly. Now, if you find yourself living paycheck to paycheck, it may even be necessary to evaluate your finances more frequently than monthly, say like weekly. I have a budget that I follow. It lists out monthly what all my bills are, what my expenses are, and what my income is. And so I use that budget faithfully in order to make sure that I continue to progress towards my goals. Now, if you know where you are financially, you can take control of where your money goes and better plan for reaching your goals in life. Next, let's talk about, Next, let's talk about your career or employment. You need to know where you are. When I left corporate America to start my own business, I had to do some real soul searching to determine what was best for me. In my last job, I had become uncomfortable in the work environment. But it was not until I evaluated where I was that I was able to make the necessary decision to leave. It was a difficult decision to make because I love the people that I work with, but at the same time, I had to make a change to accomplish the goals I had set for myself. The end of the year is a good time to evaluate where you are in your career or employment. Sorry, I'm like... So, and I was saying that the end of the year is a good time to evaluate where you are in your career and determine if that is where you want to remain in the new year. You need to know where you are in your education, because when you stop learning, you stop living. Education does not just mean attending school. Education means learning something. It's good to learn something new every day. It doesn't matter what you learn. Personally, I love to study the Bible and learn about God. I also love to play brain games and learn new ways to win. It keeps my mind sharp. Plan to learn something new every day. Plan to learn something new in the new year, because where we all are is that we need to learn something new every day. It's very important to know where you are with your physical health. If you don't have a primary physician, I suggest you get one. Even if you're doing things that you typically need to do to be healthy, you still need to evaluate where you are, because getting older causes changes to your body and how it reacts to things. Genetics is another uncontrollable factor that can affect your health. You always need to know where you are in your physical health, because your life literally depends on it. Don't risk shortening your lifespan by not knowing the status of your physical health. Mental health is another important factor you need to know, especially in this day and age where mental health issues are running rampant. The world we live in today can be very depressing if you're not careful. Some people live in denial when they have mental health issues. This is where we can help each other. It's difficult for a person to evaluate their own mental health. So if someone points out a problem that they've noticed, or if you recognize that your thoughts and feelings have changed, I want to encourage you to seek a professional evaluation to make sure you're doing okay. There's no shame in needing help. Shame comes when you refuse the help that you need, which inevitably results in pain for those who love us. Know where you are mentally so you can get the help that you need, if you need it. And the most important thing you need to know is where you are in your spiritual health. Your soul and your eternity depend on it. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We are spiritual beings who were created to live for eternity. That's forever. This body may die, but our soul is going to live forever. The world we currently live in is a temporary place, and we will end up in one of two places for eternity, forever. Our spiritual health is determined by our relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is the most important relationship you will ever have. If you have not built an intimate relationship with Jesus, you are lacking in your spiritual health, and you are at risk of spending your eternity in the lake of fire. Having an intimate relationship means that you have taken the time to really get to know who Jesus is, and he accepts you for who you are in his kingdom. Without this intimate relationship, you run the risk of Jesus telling you to depart from him because he never knew you when you come before him trying to enter heaven. Can you imagine? You either die or it's when Jesus come back or whatever. Your body dies. Your soul returns to God. And if you come to Jesus trying to get in heaven and you haven't built that relationship, Jesus is going to say, depart from me. I never knew you. I didn't have an intimate relationship with you. So I don't know you. I never knew you. Depart from me. He will call you a worker of iniquity. I don't want that. I'm pretty sure you don't want that either. So you need to work on building an intimate relationship with Jesus Christ, because that is the only way for you to not spend eternity in the lake of fire. I don't want that for anyone. I don't want that for my friends. I don't want that for my family. I don't want that for my enemies, because souls are important to me. God has shown me that it doesn't matter who a person is, what they've done. Their soul is what matters. Their soul is important to God, so their soul is important to me. So this is why I'm telling you now that you need to build a relationship with Jesus Christ to save your soul. Because without this intimate relationship, Jesus is just going to say, depart from me because I never knew you. And we see this in Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 to 23. I'm not making this stuff up. It's right there in the Bible. Read it for yourself. Read it and evaluate, honestly evaluate where you are spiritually. You can follow every law that God has commanded, but if you don't have that relationship with Jesus, it's all for naught. It's all for nothing. Your spiritual health depends on a true, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ. And you have to evaluate where you are to avoid spending eternity in the lake of fire. This is why this is the most important part. I hope I can help someone tonight. I hope I can help someone today. This is the end of the year. It's New Year's Eve when I'm posting this, and I just want to help someone realize that your spiritual health is the most important part, and it is great to evaluate that on a regular basis every day. Evaluate your spiritual health to make sure that you have that relationship with Jesus Christ that's going to save your soul from the lake of fire. Happy New Year, everyone. God bless you. I hope this helped you out some kind of way. Remember, with GFI, you can always reach the unreachable in your spiritual, physical, and mental fitness goals.